All right, YouTube. It's Detroit's HPTV coming to you out of Detroit on a Thursday morning. I got two stories for you, two clips I want to show you this morning. Last night I reported on a mass shooting in Philadelphia with some students, and by no coincidence, this morning Reid is doing a story to where she's really doing a hit piece, and she's also attacking the Second Amendment. They always find a way to use a chaotic event or some type of tragedy to politicize it. So I want you to look at what she says first. And she has a real problem with the Christian right. I don't understand what she means when she says the Christian right. Does she mean conservatives that happen to be Christian? But what you finna see is a real hit piece. I want you to analyze everything that she's attacking when she goes at this pastor. This is for fair usage under the 1976 Copyright Act for education and commentary. Check her out.
Republicans in North Carolina have nominated a Holocaust-denying, LGBTQ-hating, gun-loving, anti-abortion extremist Christian nationalist zealot, who also happens to be a black man who hates the civil rights movement, as their nominee for governor. And while usually we try to not make you listen to too much loopy talk on this show, I think you need to hear him for yourself. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mark Robinson, the state.
Now, I'm just going to interject and I'm going to let it play. Wait till you see the things that the pastor is saying in front of his congregation, his church, that got Reid so upset. Look what the problem is.
Current lieutenant governor.
For me, there is no compromise on abortion. It makes no difference to me why or how that child ended up in that womb. There's no reason anybody anywhere in America should be telling any child about transgenderism, homosexuality, any of that filth. And yes, I called it filth. We are called, here we're getting ready to get in trouble, called to be led by men. The Christian patriots of this nation will own this nation and rule this nation. I got them AR-15s in case the government gets too big for its britches. Because I'm going to fill the backside of them britches with some lead.
Now, it is worth noting that he was bragging about his AR-15 the day after a white supremacist murdered 10 black people at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York, which it turns out is completely in character for Robinson, who rose to right-wing fame as a passionate defender of guns.
Is that even true? And did one thing have anything to do with the other?
Guns, and more guns. So much so that he mocked the survivors of the shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, calling them spoiled, angry, know-it-all children trying to tell law-abiding adults that we must give up our constitutional right to own certain weapons, adding that these silly, little, immature media prostitutes need to have a seat in time out and shut up. That is the Mark Robinson who was elected lieutenant governor in 2020, and who Donald Trump endorsed last weekend, saying this.
This is Martin Luther King on steroids, okay? Now, I told that to Mark. I said, I think you're better than Martin Luther King. I think you are Martin Luther King times 2.
Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who was assassinated using a certain weapon, a high-powered shotgun, because he was leading the civil rights movement that ensured that.
Think about that. What she just said. The Martin Luther King that was shot with a high-powered shotgun. She just throw that in there. Like, you got to watch these people. If you listen to how they talk, you could tell there's a lot of wickedness and evil in it. She said that to provoke emotion, to misdirect anger. You know what I mean? She used that as a weapon by evoking that name and that contents and twisting the scenario. You know, that's what the wicked people do. Watch how they talk. That's what I'm be showing you.
Robinson could vote in the South and eat in restaurants without the humiliation of segregation, and that he can stand for election to potentially become the state's first Black governor. You know, the civil rights movement that Mark Robinson once referred to on Facebook as, quote, that crap in the 1960s that was the communist rise movement. Facebook is also where Robinson shared his rampant and gross anti-Semitism freely. In 2018, he wrote, quote, this foolishness about Hitler disarming millions of Jews and then marching them off to concentration camps is a bunch of hogwash. In 2017, he claimed, quote,
They getting so desperate and so bad in their news reporting that you can see any person that be on social media, you could tell she's going and getting clips from here and here. She's piecing together a narrative for her viewers to paint that man in all them dispersions that she said because he's a conservative. Plainly, she doesn't even know him personally. She don't even know if those are his politics. This is what they pay her to do. They pay her to do this every day.
there is a reason the liberal media fills the airwaves with programs about the Nazi and the 6 million Jews, and he put that in quotes, that they murdered. Robinson also wrote about how an agnostic Jew made the film Black Panther to, quote, pull the shekels off of your Schwarza pockets. And while he was running for lieutenant governor in 2020, Robinson voiced agreement with a religious leader who claimed that the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are the Rothschild family of international bankers that rule every single central bank, the CIA, China, and Islam. And somehow a majority of North Carolina voters elected that man lieutenant governor. Maybe they didn't know all of that. But it is that Mark Robinson who North Carolina Republican primary voters have chosen as their candidate for governor. Democrats, meanwhile, nominated North Carolina's current Attorney General, Josh Stein, who, if elected, would become the state's first Jewish governor. The irony is kind of poetic. Josh Stein, North Carolina Attorney General and Democratic nominee for governor, joins me now. I guess the obvious question, Mr. Attorney General, Mr. Stein, how do you run against that?
You tell people.
Did you see how she spent that narrative? Now I'm gonna show you this other clip I want you to see this morning. These pundits that are employed by the Democratic Party, they so scared of a Trump win, they bringing out all stops on people. Now, I reported a couple of days ago when Charles Barkley was saying that he was going to punch a Black conservative wearing a Trump shirt in the face. He got so much backlash on social media that he has totally changed his story. Now he has a problem with the Democrats. Charles be flip-flopping. Did we the people put that pressure on him? Listen what he says now.
We touched on it earlier. Charles's comments created a lot of buzz over the last few days. A conversation about Donald Trump, who has said his criminal indictments and mugshot have endeared him to Black voters. It's been everywhere, even creating topics for some of our fellow news networks. So we talked about President Biden's enthusiasm problem among Black Americans. But the flip side of that coin is this: the appeal of Donald Trump to certain Black voters. So let's talk about that with Coleman Hughes. He's joined us on stage. He's a podcast host and CNN political analyst whose new book, The End of Race Politics, Arguments for a Colorblind America, is available now. I'm always fascinated by the term colorblind. I always wonder, Coleman, is that possible? Also joining us is CNN senior political commentator Van Jones is here. Great to have you guys here. Awesome. Coleman, let's start with you. What do you make of the president's comments? I hear you see things a little differently.
Well, yeah, I don't think they're offensive. I'm not going to punch anyone in the face, but that doesn't mean they're right either. So if you look at it, Donald Trump's been gaining steam amongst black voters since prior to 2020. The polls from 2022 before the first indictment actually showed him picking up a lot of steam too. Mm-hmm. So whatever the trend is probably not the indictments. It's probably a dissatisfaction with Democrats in general. You also look at him polling against other Republicans.
But he named the indictments specifically, though.
Right, so
he named the indictments.
He named them. So I don't think he's right about that, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think the indictment is what is drawing black voters towards him.
What do you
think clearly
it
something
is?
else.
What do you think it is?
Well, I think, frankly, it could just be that
she is totally clueless. She's been working for the Democratic Party. That she is totally clueless. She actually thinks that people are making decisions based on gym shoes and based on T-shirts, as if we are really mindless. Like we're not seeing that Biden's policies are hurting us more than any other president in office in the last 50 years. We just supposed to ignore that. Like that's not a reality. And as far as lying, nobody lies more than these people. Watch this.
First of all, this trend is a lot of younger black voters. Basically, it's black men under 30 that are moving towards the Republican Party, black men basically my age. And it could just be a general dissatisfaction with the message that the Democratic Party is telling black people. They're telling black people essentially, nothing is your fault. It's all systemic racism. And that's actually not appealing to a lot of younger men. Younger men prefer to be told your life is in your own control and you can make your own destiny.
Why don't you think it's offensive? I think that's interesting.
What he just told him, the young man just told him, they turned off by the race baiting. They didn't understand that. Why don't you think it's offensive? Listen up.
I don't think it's offensive.
You said it was wrong. So
I think it's like incorrect.
He didn't say it was wrong.
But it doesn't offend me as an idea.
Yeah.
The idea in theory that people would rally behind Trump because he's being unfairly persecuted, and that resonates with black people's feeling of being unfairly persecuted. That's not offensive to me in theory. I just don't think it's the actual reason why people are going towards him. It has nothing to do with that.
Mm-hmm. I was offended. I appreciate your point. I was offended.
I was offended too.
But maybe it's a generational thing. I agree with what you're saying, that he does kind of have this kind of outlaw image that's going on now, and that might be somewhat appealing. But I think in his mind, he associates black people with criminality. So I think in his mind, what he did with the Central Park Five and that sort of stuff. So to me, it was a tell. Just the same way that he said the new new Republic.
They always go back to the Central Park Five, and a lot of young people don't remember the Central Park Five. The Central Park Five was when 5 young black men were falsely accused of an assault on a white woman in a park in New York. They was arrested. The case was lost by their defense attorneys. It was corruption, but all that was in the police department. Donald Trump didn't work for the police. What he did was made an off-the-cuff statement that they should be severely punished in some type of way. You know what I mean? I don't know if he said the penalty or whatever, but it was an off-the-cuff statement that they put in the paper. But at that time, the city thought they were guilty. They had been convicted. So he can take an L for that. I'm quite sure he'll own up to it because the young men were exonerated after years of fighting their case. You understand what I'm saying? So that might have even changed his perspective on things, knowing like, damn, I was accusing them people too, and they was innocent. See, they only want to paint one narrative to you. You know what I mean? He might want to make amends for that. You see how many people he's let out of prison? Have you ever thought about that? Use your logic. Donald Trump has let more black men out of prison than any other president. So you think he could be trying to make amends for him falsely thinking that some men had did something? That's the obvious thing that you see. But they don't want you to see that.
And a contender for one of the governorships is Dr. King times 10. This guy's not a civil rights guy at all, but he's black. And so you can see in his mind, crime, Dr. King, black. So I was offended by that. But I think you put your finger on something very important. I do think that Trump seems strong right now. You got people jumping on 957 lawsuits, all these felonies and stuff. If I had one felony, I'd be home crying.
Yeah.
This dude has
or you'd be in jail, Van.
Oh, true. I'd be in jail crying.
But that only seems to boost his popularity.
And I just do think that right now, people are hurting and uncertain. You go in the grocery store, you spend $300, and the food runs out by Wednesday. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
The world seems to be on fire, and then here's this guy who's just strong. Now he's strong and wrong, but he does seem strong, and I think that does have some appeal. And I think that we got to deal with that. I also do think,
but he's also very fluid with the truth, and that doesn't seem to matter to people either.
You are well raised sister. She's fluid with the truth. She didn't say you're a damn liar.
But you know what I mean. That doesn't bother you, Coleman?
Oh, his lying definitely bothers me. I didn't vote for him, and I wouldn't vote for him. But for a lot of voters, I agree, view him as strong. And there's actually been some polls of Republicans that like him. And a lot of them agree with all of the same criticisms that you just said. They know he's a liar, but they like that he's strong. And especially when you put him up against Joe Biden, who with each passing day just looks worse and worse and more feeble, having that next to a person that is relatively strong.
Because, guys, I don't necessarily think it's about age. I think it's about a person's energy and a person's vitality.
That's right. It's not the number.
Yeah. I don't necessarily think it's the number.
That's right.
I think it's about how they carry themselves.
That's exactly right.
Bloomberg is, I think, in his 80s.
Yes.
I mean, he is sharp as a tack. Bernie Sanders. So I do think that the way that Biden carries himself, his stutter, which I worked for him in the Obama White House. He always had that stutter, but it does seem a lot worse. And so I do think that, hurts. And then also on policy. And, we're all friends here. We can talk. There were things that Black voters wanted and expected and hoped for in 2020. Police reform, the George Floyd Policing Act, but it didn't pass. Voting rights, the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill, that didn't pass. More progress on criminal justice, the Equal Act, that didn't pass. And so once you get past the emotionality and this, that, and the other, you just kind of look to Charles' point. What did we get for our vote? Look, the economy is better than it could have been. I love a lot of stuff he did, but if you just look at that particular set of issues, you could be disappointed.
Yeah,
on the other hand, though, but
let me ask a quick question, because this is go back to something you said. The reason, and I'm only speaking for myself. The reason I think the Democratic Party and Mr. Biden, President Biden, is losing Black votes is they only care about Black people every 4 years. They come into our neighborhoods and say, we're going to make stuff better. We're going to do this, do this, do this. And then finally, us Black people are like, man, other than our ability to dunk a basketball, all my neighborhoods are still the same. Our schools are still the same. And that's why I think Black people are leaving disappointed in the Democratic Party, because I ain't going to lie. I voted Democratic every time just because I thought it was going to help Black people and poor people. Because Black people and poor white people, they're in the same boat. And I didn't care who the president was. I'm not going to lie. But I only voted Republican one time in my life. That was for John Kasich. And I didn't even know he couldn't win. But then I'm starting to look like, man, I understand why Black people are leaving, want to vote for somebody else. Because every 4 years they come into our neighborhoods and, man, we're going to make things better for you.
Oh, I think that's true. And I'll let you go. I do want to point out, though, that poor Black folks have been.
I'm going to end there. Isn't that a large turnaround from just a few days ago that he was going to be around here punching people in the face? That's the pressure from we the people, the patriots. Y'all should have seen how many people were blogging and reporting on that and getting on his head and making podcasts. You could see they caving under the pressure of free media and free thinkers. So enjoy the rest of y'all mornings. Signing to you out of Detroit. Peace. Keep your head on the swivel. Like, share, and subscribe. Salute to all the patriots.